All right, Groupon's only been around for 3 years, but it's spawned a whole new marketplace of daily deals. Now, one man who knows Groupon and the microsites that have grown from its success is BV Capital's Matthias Schilling. Matthias, you've invested in 3 companies, City Deal, Darbury, QPod. What is a Groupon microsite?
Well, a Groupon microsite, I mean, really these companies that we built have a very similar model like Groupon in international markets. So City Deal, we did the first investment in, and they built up these operations in Europe very quickly. Are
they just like a Groupon coupon kind of deal?
It's exactly the same business model, really, and but they go after different international markets.
And are they just as labor intensive as Groupon's?
They're just as labor intensive. Yeah, I mean, sales is a big part of the business. So essentially,
right.
As any local site, you have to sell to local service providers, and so they've built up very efficient and effective sales forces very quickly in these international markets.
Matthias, I want to ask you a question about this shakeup in the executive ranks. The president and COO leaving kind of abruptly certainly seems unusual right before a potential IPO. What's your take on this? Is this a sign of a fast-growing young company potentially having some growing pains?
Yeah, I mean, first, I don't have any inside information, so I have to speculate. But, I would say at a company that's growing that fast as Groupon, this is not something that I would view as unusual. It's at any stage of a company, you need different talents for the executive team, and the company has grown very quickly, and is going to do an IPO soon. So I don't see that as something very unusual.
Well, so let me ask you about that. When sometimes management changes do mean a lot. Sometimes, in the public markets, when a CFO leaves a company, the stock can tank. When the Silicon Valley guy leaves a Chicago startup run by a 30-year-old, that could mean something not great.
Yeah, it could. It could mean something not great, but at the same time, Groupon has a fairly deep pool of talent in the executive team. And, they have done a great job of really growing this company, with unprecedented growth. I mean, I don't know any company that's grown that quickly. So I personally don't think it's something unusual or something that concerns me.
Matthias, Groupon obviously has very ambitious plans to scale. They're already scaling around the world. Do you think that Rob Solomon was not the right guy to lead that?
I honestly can't comment on that. I have not met Rob Solomon, actually, and so I can't tell you anything about that.
So can you say whether or not you think Groupon is prepared for these very ambitious plans to scale in the United States and around the world ahead of potentially going public? Do you think they're ready for that?
I'm very confident about that. I mean, I've followed as an investor the company now for a year or so. I've seen unprecedented growth. I've seen unprecedented success, both on the consumer side as well as on the service provider side. And, this is a huge market. This model has global appeal. So I'm very, very confident as it relates to the success of the company.
So when you look at your shareholder, you took shares for all these companies you sold to them?
Yes.
And so you could sell the shares now. You don't have to wait for an IPO. Why would you wait for an IPO? Do you think the valuation can get even bigger?
Yes, again.
I guess that would be the reason.
Yeah, no, that is the reason. I mean, I do believe that, this is a huge market. I mean, local, could be as large as $1 trillion market. And, it hasn't been tackled by anyone. I mean, Groupon is really the first internet company that has scale, that has reached scale in that market. And, we want to be part of the future of the company and see more growth. And, if you look at this, is also the business model has global appeal. And there's a lot of growth globally as well.
People are cheap everywhere.
People are cheap everywhere. People are looking for great deals everywhere.
Even in your native Switzerland, they're cheap?
Even in our native of Switzerland, they're looking for great deals.
Matthias, do you see the potential for other microsites to spin off of Groupon?
Do you mean spin out of the company Groupon, or competitive efforts in other countries?
Competitive efforts in other countries.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of competitive efforts. I mean, you go to China, and I remember I looked at the Chinese market about a year ago, and very shortly after the Groupon model really became public, there were already 300 to 400 competitive sites. And success attracts competition, and I think that's good and bad. The history on the internet has shown that there is a great network effect for the market leader, and I believe Groupon still today has about 70% of the market share here in the US and a very large market share globally. And so, scale ultimately wins, and scale attracts the vast majority of the value creation.
All right, Matthias, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Good insight.
Thank you very much.